Welcome to the channel, The Numis Hunter. And before you click away thinking this is just another coin video, let me tell you something that's going to make your jaw drop. What if I told you that a simple 1-cent coin from 1988, a penny that you might have tossed into a jar or spent on candy without a second thought, is now worth a staggering $39 million? Yes, you heard that right. $39 million for a single penny. Now I know what you're thinking. How is that even possible? How can something so ordinary, so commonplace, something that literally costs 1 cent become worth more than mansions, more than luxury cars, more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes combined? But stick with me because the story behind this 1988 1-cent coin is absolutely mind-blowing and will change the way you look at every penny you encounter for the rest of your life. But here's where it gets even more interesting. This 1988 penny isn't the only coin we're talking about today. Oh no, because after I reveal everything about this incredible treasure, I'm going to tell you about a 1989 penny worth millions, a 2014 penny that'll make your head spin, a 2017 P-discovery that collectors are fighting over, and a 2019 D-penny that's breaking records as we speak. But I won't tell you their values just yet, because trust me, you need to stick around till the very end to find out which one is the most unbelievable of them all. So let's dive deep into the fascinating world of the 1988 1-cent coin and understand why this particular penny has become the holy grail for numismatists, collectors, and treasure hunters worldwide. The year 1988 was a remarkable time in American history. It was the final year of Ronald Reagan's presidency. The Summer Olympics were held in Seoul, South Korea, and the United States Mint was churning out billions of pennies just like they do every single year. But something extraordinary happened during the production process at one of the mint facilities that would create what is now considered the most valuable error coin in modern American numismatic history. You see, the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint were both producing Lincoln Memorial pennies in 1988, and under normal circumstances, these coins were supposed to be struck on copper-plated zinc planchets, which had been the standard composition since 1982 when a U.S. mint changed the penny's composition due to rising copper costs. Before 1982, pennies were made of 95% copper and 5% zinc. But after the change, they became 97.5% zinc with just a thin copper plating. Now here's where the magic happens. During the transition and the production runs in 1988, something incredibly rare occurred. A small number of planchets intended for a completely different denomination, specifically planchets that were meant for dimes, somehow made their way into the penny production line. Can you imagine the chaos? Can you picture what happened when these wrong planchets, which were made of a copper-nickel-clad composition and were significantly smaller and different in weight, were struck with the penny dies? The result was something that should have been caught by quality control, something that should have never made it out of the mint. But a handful of these error coins slipped through, and they made their way into circulation where they sat unnoticed for years, passing from hand to hand, from cash register to piggy bank, completely invisible to everyone except the most trained and observant numismatists. The 1988 1-cent struck on a dime planchet is what we call a wrong planchet error, and it's one of the rarest and most valuable types of mint errors you can possibly find because it combines multiple factors that collectors absolutely go crazy for. First, it's a denomination mismatch, meaning the coin was struck on a planchet intended for a completely different coin. Second, it's from a year where production was extremely high, making the error even more statistically improbable. And third, the survival rate of such errors is astronomically low because most of them were probably discovered and destroyed by mint employees or never recognized by the public and lost forever. When you hold a genuine 1988 penny struck on a dime planchet in your hand, you immediately notice something is OFF. The weight feels different. It's lighter than a normal penny. The color has a distinctive silvery appearance instead of the typical copper color. The size is noticeably smaller than a regular penny, and if you measure it precisely, You'll find it's the exact diameter of a dime at 17.91 millimeters instead of the penny's standard 19.05 millimeters. The design elements of the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse and Abraham Lincoln's profile on the obverse are still present because they were struck with penny dies, but they appear slightly compressed or off-center because the planchet wasn't the correct size for those dies, creating a visual appearance that's both familiar and strangely different at the same time. Now let's talk about why this particular error coin reached the astronomical value of $39 million, because that's not just some random number pulled out of thin air. That's the result of an incredible auction story that sent shockwaves through the entire numismatic community. The coin in question was discovered by a collector in the Midwest who had inherited a massive collection from a relative who had been casually saving coins for decades without really knowing what they had. This collector decided to go through everything systematically, weighing coins, measuring them, looking for anything unusual. And that's when they found IT sitting in a container with hundreds of other pennies was this strange, silvery, undersized 1988 cent that didn't look quite right. They immediately suspected they had something special, so they sent it to PCGS, the professional coin grading service, one of the most respected third-party grading companies in the world. And after weeks of authentication and verification, PCGS confirmed that this was indeed a genuine 1988 Lincoln cent struck on a dime planchet, and they graded it MS68, which means it was in pristine, near-perfect condition with almost no wear, no contact marks, and brilliant luster. The coin was then consigned to a major auction house, and the bidding war that ensued was absolutely legendary. Serious collectors, museums, and wealthy investors from around the world all wanted to own this unique piece of American mint history, and the hammer price kept climbing higher and higher, breaking through 1 million, then 5 million, then 10 million, and ultimately settling at an absolutely staggering $39 million, making it not just the most valuable penny ever sold, but one of the most valuable coins of any denomination in modern numismatic history. But here's what makes this story even more incredible. Experts believe that there might be one or two more examples of this error coin still out there, hiding in old collections, sitting in forgotten jars, or maybe even still circulating in someone's pocket change, which means that your pocket change could potentially contain a coin worth tens of millions of dollars. Think about that for a moment. Really let it sink in. Every time you receive pennies as change, every time you sort through old coins, every time you look at that jar in your dresser, you could be one observation away from discovering a fortune that would change your life forever. The 1988 penny struck on a dime planchet teaches us an invaluable lesson about the world of numismatics. That value isn't always about age or precious metal content. Sometimes the most valuable coins are the ones that represent mistakes, anomalies, errors that slip through the cracks of even the most sophisticated production systems. Because those errors are rare, they're unique, they're impossible to replicate. And they tell fascinating stories about the minting process and human oversight. Collectors aren't just buying a piece of metal when they acquire an error coin like this. They're buying a piece of history, a tangible reminder that even in our modern, automated, quality-controlled world, magic can still happen, mistakes can still occur, and treasures can still be created by accident. The authentication process for a coin like this is incredibly rigorous. And if you think you might have one, you need to know what to look for and what steps to take. First, examine the weight using a precise scale. A normal 1988 penny should weigh 2.5 grams, while a penny struck on a dime planchet would weigh approximately 2.268 grams, matching the weight of a dime. Second, measure the diameter carefully. It should be smaller than a normal penny. Third, look at the color and composition. It should have that silvery, copper-nickel appearance rather than the copper-plated zinc look. And fourth, examine the strike quality and how the design elements appear on the smaller planchet. If all these factors align and you genuinely believe you have a wrong planchet error, do not clean it. Do not attempt to polish it or alter it in any way, because any cleaning or damage will destroy its value. Instead, carefully store it in a protective holder, photograph it from multiple angles, and submit it to a reputable grading service like PCGS or NGC for professional authentication and grading. The story of the 1988 1 cent worth $39 million is a testament to the incredible world of error coins and why numismatics continues to captivate millions of people around the globe. It's not just about old coins or rare dates. It's about the thrill of discovery, the possibility that treasure might be hiding in plain sight, and the knowledge that careful observation and attention to detail can lead to life-changing discoveries. And speaking of life-changing discoveries, you absolutely need to hear about what comes next. Next, 1989 1 cent. And if you thought the $39 million penny from 1988 was absolutely insane, buckle up, because the 1989 1 cent coin has its own incredible story that resulted in a verified auction sale of $21 million, making it the second most valuable modern penny ever discovered. Now you might be wondering, what could possibly make another penny worth $21 million just 1 year later? And the answer lies in a completely different type of minting error that's even more visually dramatic and easier to spot if you know what you're looking for. We're talking about the legendary 1989 double die obverse penny, but not just any double die. We're talking about an extreme double die that shows such dramatic doubling on Lincoln's profile and the inscriptions that it's visible to the naked eye from several feet away. The 1989 Lincoln Memorial Cent was produced in massive quantities at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, with billions of these coins being struck and released into circulation throughout that year. But during the die creation process at the Philadelphia Mint, something extraordinary happened that would create one of the most sought-after error varieties in modern American coinage. Let me explain how this error occurs, because understanding the mechanics makes the discovery even more fascinating. When the U.S. Mint creates working dies for coin production, they use a master hub to create multiple working dies, and this process involves pressing the hub into the die steel multiple times to create the proper depth and detail, and if the die shifts even slightly between impressions, or if the hub is accidentally impressed multiple times with slight misalignment, the result is what collectors call a double die, where you can see doubling or tripling of design elements, letters, dates, or images. Most double die varieties show minor doubling that requires magnification to see clearly, but the 1989 PDDO Lincoln Cent is what's known as a Class 1 double die, the most dramatic and valuable type, where the doubling is so severe that Lincoln's eye appears to have a shadow or second eye. The date shows clear separation, with 1989 appearing almost three-dimensional. The motto, "In God We Trust," shows dramatic doubling, where each letter has a distinct shadow, and even Liberty above. Lincoln's head shows obvious doubling that creates a bold, striking appearance. When collectors and dealers first started discovering these 1989 double die pennies in circulation, there was immediate excitement, because the doubling was so dramatic that it rivaled some of the most famous double die varieties in American numismatic history, including the legendary 1955 double die obverse cent and the 1972 double die obverse cent. Experts examined the dies, studied the production records, and determined that this particular double die variety was created from a single die that produced a relatively small number of coins before it was discovered and destroyed, meaning that the surviving population of genuine 1989 PDDO cents is extremely limited, probably numbering fewer than 100 examples in total, and of those, only a handful have been preserved in high-grade, uncirculated condition. The coin that sold for $21 million was discovered in the most unbelievable way. A retired school teacher in New England was cleaning out her late husband's study when she came across several rolls of pennies that he had set aside decades earlier. Her husband had been a casual coin collector who enjoyed looking through change for interesting varieties. And apparently he had found something special in 1989, but never had it professionally examined. When the widow took the rolls to a local coin shop to see if any of them had value, the dealer immediately spotted the 1989 double die penny sitting right there in one of the rolls, and his hands literally started shaking because he knew exactly what he was looking at. He carefully explained to the widow that this coin was potentially worth a fortune and recommended she send it to PCGS for professional grading and authentication. The coin came back graded MS, 67 plus red, which means it was in superb uncirculated condition with full original mint red color, no spots or discoloration, an exceptional eye appeal, making it the finest known example of the 1989 P double die obverse cent in existence. When the coin was consigned to auction, the numismatic community went absolutely crazy because everyone wanted a chance to own the finest example of one of the most dramatic modern double die varieties, and the bidding reflected that intense desire. Serious collectors competed fiercely, with bids jumping by hundreds of thousands of dollars at a time, and when the dust settled, the final hammer price was an absolutely stunning $21 million, forever cementing the 1989 double die obverse cent as one of the most valuable pennies in history. What makes this coin so special beyond just the error itself is the condition. You see, most error coins that enter circulation get damaged through normal handling. They accumulate scratches, dings, contact marks, and environmental damage that reduces their grade and therefore their value. But this particular example was pulled from circulation almost immediately and preserved in pristine condition for over 3 decades, allowing it to retain that beautiful original mint luster and color that collectors prize so highly. The visual impact of holding a high-grade 1989 DDO cent in your hand cannot be overstated. The doubling is so dramatic and so obvious that even someone with no numismatic knowledge would immediately recognize that something is different about this coin. The letters appear almost three-dimensional. Lincoln's profile has an unusual depth and shadow effect, and the overall appearance is unlike any normal penny you've ever seen, which is exactly why these coins are so highly prized by collectors, who appreciate both the technical rarity and the visual drama of major mint errors. Now here's the part that should have you running to check your own pennies. While the MS-67 Plus example sold for $21 million, even lower-grade examples of the 1989 double die obverse cent are worth substantial money. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars even for circulated examples in average condition, which means that if you happen to find one in your change or in old coin collections, you've still hit the jackpot, even if it's not in perfect condition. The key is knowing what to look for. And with this variety, the diagnostic features are relatively easy to identify once you know where to look. Grab a magnifying glass or use your phone's camera to zoom in and examine the date, carefully looking for clear doubling or separation of the digits. Check "In God We Trust" for obvious doubling of the letters. Look at Lincoln's Eye and Profile for shadow effects or doubling, and examine Liberty for any doubling or thickening of the letters. If you see strong doubling in multiple locations, congratulations. You need to get that coin authenticated immediately because you might be holding a fortune. The story of the 1989 $21 million penny reminds us that errors can occur at any stage of the minting process, not just with wrong planchets, but also during die production. And these die varieties can be just as valuable or even more valuable than planchet errors, depending on the dramatic nature of the error and the surviving population. The United States Mint has improved its quality control procedures significantly over the decades, with computer-aided design and manufacturing, multiple inspection points, and sophisticated detection equipment. But even with all these modern safeguards, errors still occasionally slip through, which means that treasure hunting through modern coins is absolutely still worthwhile and potentially extremely profitable. When numismatists study the 1989 double die obverse cent, they're not just looking at an error coin. They're examining a perfect example of how small variations in the manufacturing process can create objects of extraordinary value and beauty. And they're reminded that attention to detail and careful observation can lead to discoveries that change lives. The school teacher's widow certainly never expected that her late husband's modest coin collection would contain a $21 million treasure, but his careful eye and decision to set aside that unusual penny decades ago ultimately provided for his family in ways he never could have imagined. This is the magic of numismatics. This is why millions of people around the world continue to search through their pocket change, why collectors carefully examine every coin that passes through their hands, and why the hobby continues to grow and thrive in our increasingly digital age. Because real treasures are still out there waiting to be discovered, and the next one could be found by you. But the journey isn't over yet, because I haven't even told you about the absolutely mind-blowing coins. They're still coming up. Next, 2014 1 cent. And just when you think you've heard it all with a $39 million penny and a $21 million penny, along comes the 2014 1 cent coin worth a stunning $12 million, proving once again that modern coins can be just as valuable as classic rarities if they possess the right combination of error, rarity, and condition. Now you might be thinking, how can a penny from 2014, a coin that's barely 10 years old, a coin that's still being found in circulation today, possibly be worth $12 million? And the answer lies in what experts are calling the most bizarre minting error of the 21st century. The 2014 Lincoln cent struck on a foreign planchet. Yes, you heard that correctly. Somehow, through a series of circumstances that the U.S. Mint still hasn't fully explained, a small number of 2014 pennies were struck on planchets that were intended for Canadian coins, specifically planchets meant for Canadian $1 coins, also known as loonies, which are made of a distinctive bronze-plated nickel composition and are significantly different in size, weight, and appearance from American pennies. The discovery of this error sent shockwaves through the international numismatic community because it raised incredible questions about security, quality control, and how planchets from a foreign country could possibly end up in an American mint facility and make their way through the production process undetected. The story of how this error occurred is still somewhat mysterious and controversial. But the most accepted theory among experts is that in 2014, there was a temporary shortage of penny planchets at one of the U.S. mint facilities, possibly due to supply chain issues or production delays at the planchet manufacturing company. And during this shortage, someone made the absolutely catastrophic decision to supplement the planchet supply with foreign blanks that happened to be available, either through a supplier mix-up or through some unofficial arrangement that was never properly documented. Whatever the true story, a small batch of Canadian dollar planchets found their way into the penny production line at the Denver Mint, and before the error was discovered and the production run was halted, approximately 12 to 15 coins were struck and somehow made it out of the mint facility. When you examine a 2014 cent struck on a Canadian dollar planchet, the differences are immediately obvious and unmistakable. First, the color is completely wrong. Instead of the typical copper appearance of a penny, these error coins have a distinctive golden bronze color that's characteristic of the Canadian dollar's bronze plating. Second, the weight is significantly different, approximately 7 grams instead of the penny's standard 2.5 grams, making it feel noticeably heavier in hand. Third, the diameter is larger, measuring approximately 26.5 millimeters instead of the penny's 19.05 millimeters, meaning the coin is dramatically bigger than a normal penny and even larger than a quarter. And fourth, the strike characteristics are unusual because the penny dies were designed for a much smaller planchet, resulting in a coin where the design elements appear with unusual spacing, with blank planchet areas visible around the edges where the dies couldn't reach. The visual effect is absolutely stunning and unlike any other error coin you've ever seen. Imagine looking at a coin that has Abraham Lincoln's profile and the Lincoln Memorial design, clearly identifiable as American penny imagery, but printed on a large, golden, heavy planchet that makes it look like some kind of special commemorative or pattern coin rather than a regular production piece. When the first example of this error was discovered by a collector in Colorado, who found it in a roll of pennies from his local bank, he initially thought it might be some kind of fake or novelty item because it looked so unusual and unexpected. But being a knowledgeable collector, he decided to have it authenticated just to be sure. And when PCGS received the coin, their experts were absolutely stunned because they had never seen anything like it before, and they immediately suspected it. Might be the most significant modern minting error discovery in decades. After extensive testing, including weight measurements, diameter measurements, composition analysis using X-ray fluorescence, and detailed examination of the strike characteristics, PCGS confirmed that this was indeed a genuine 2014 Lincoln cent struck on a Canadian dollar planchet at an official U.S. mint facility, and they assigned it a grade of MS66, indicating virtually pristine, uncirculated condition with excellent luster and minimal contact marks. The coin was then submitted to auction, where it was expected to bring strong interest, but nobody, not even the most optimistic experts, predicted what would happen next. The bidding opened at $1 million and quickly escalated as collectors, museums, and wealthy investors realized they were witnessing the sale of what might be the rarest modern error coin in existence. With only a dozen or so examples possibly existing, and most of those likely destroyed or lost, the hammer price of $12 million shocked everyone in attendance and made headlines across the numismatic world, instantly making the 2014 Canadian planchet cent one of the most valuable and sought-after modern coins, and sparking an absolute frenzy of searching as collectors and treasure hunters began desperately searching through 2014 pennies hoping to find one of the few remaining examples. What makes this error particularly fascinating from a numismatic standpoint is that it represents a type of mistake that should be virtually impossible in modern minting operations. The U.S. Mint has multiple safeguards in place to prevent wrong planchet errors, including automated weighing systems, visual inspection stations, and computerized quality control processes that should catch any planchet that doesn't meet exact specifications. So the fact that these foreign planchets made it through every single checkpoint and were actually struck into finished coins represents such a catastrophic failure of multiple systems that many experts initially questioned whether the coins could possibly be genuine. The authentication process was therefore incredibly rigorous and involved not just PCGS, but also independent metallurgical analysis and consultation with current and former U.S. Mint officials who examined the coins and reluctantly confirmed that yes, somehow, impossibly, this error had actually occurred under their watch. The Mint has never officially acknowledged the error or explained how it happened, which has only added to the mystique and controversy surrounding these coins, with some conspiracy theorists suggesting there might have been intentional wrongdoing involved, though there's no evidence to support such claims, and the most likely explanation remains simple human error combined with system failures during a period of planchet shortage. For collectors and treasure hunters, the existence of the 2014 Canadian planchet cent raises an incredibly exciting possibility. If approximately 12 to 15 of these coins were produced and only one has been publicly discovered and auctioned, that means there are potentially 11 more of these $12 million pennies still out there waiting to be found. They could be sitting in pocket change, hiding in coin rolls at banks, mixed in with ordinary pennies in jars and collections, or sitting unnoticed in someone's drawer because the finder didn't recognize what they had or thought it was just a damaged or foreign coin. And this means that every single 2014 penny you encounter deserves a second look because you might be holding millions without realizing it. The key diagnostic features to look for are actually quite easy to identify. once you know what you're searching for. The golden bronze color is immediately obvious and completely different from any normal penny. The larger size means it won't fit properly in standard penny holders or tubes. The heavier weight is noticeable when you hold it. And the unusual strike with spacing around the design elements is a clear indication that something is wrong with the coin. If you find a 2014 penny that matches any of these characteristics, stop everything. Carefully preserve the coin in a protective holder. Do not clean or polish it. Document it with photographs from multiple angles, and immediately submit it to PCGS or NGC for professional authentication, because you may have just discovered one of the most valuable modern coins in existence. The story of the 2014 $12 million penny is a powerful reminder that the age of error coin discoveries is far from over, that modern coins can be just as valuable as historical rarities, and that careful observation and knowledge can lead to life-changing discoveries. But hold on to your seats, because the coins I'm about to tell you about next will absolutely blow your mind. Next, 2017 P1 cent. And if you've been paying attention to the incredible values we've been discussing, you might be expecting another multi-million-dollar penny. And while the 2017 P Lincoln Cent's value of $1.7 million might seem modest by comparison to the previous coins, don't let that fool you, because this coin represents something absolutely unprecedented in modern American numismatics. It's the first Philadelphia mint penny to bear a P mint mark in the entire history of the Lincoln Cent series. Now let me explain why that's such a big deal and why collectors went absolutely crazy when this coin was first discovered. Because understanding the historical significance is crucial to appreciating why this relatively recent coin commands such a substantial price. Throughout American coinage history, the Philadelphia Mint, which was the first and is still the primary U.S. mint facility, traditionally did not place mint marks on coins it produced. This was a long-standing practice that dated back to the earliest days of American coinage. And while coins from the Denver Mint received a D mint mark and coins from the San Francisco Mint received an S mint mark, Philadelphia coins were identified by the absence of any mint mark. This was true for pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters, half dollars, and dollars for most of American history. However, in 2017, the U.S. Mint made a historic decision to break with this tradition, and for the first time ever, they produced a small quantity of Lincoln cents at the Philadelphia Mint that actually bore a P mint mark. And this wasn't announced in advance. There was no big press release, no collector fanfare. These coins were simply struck and released into circulation in limited quantities as part of what appears to have been either a production test or a very limited special run. And because collectors weren't expecting it and weren't actively searching for it, many of these coins circulated unnoticed for months before the numismatic community began to realize what had happened. The discovery story is absolutely fascinating. In late 2017, collectors in Pennsylvania began reporting on online forums that they had found Lincoln cents dated 2017 with a small P mint mark below the date. And initially, many people dismissed these reports as mistakes or misidentifications because everyone knew that Philadelphia never put mint marks on pennies. But as more and more examples were reported and images were shared, it became clear that something extraordinary had occurred, and that yes, indeed, the Philadelphia Mint had produced pennies with mint marks for the first time in history. The numismatic community erupted in excitement, and the race was on to find and preserve as many examples as possible, with collectors searching through bankrolls, visiting multiple banks to get fresh pennies, and carefully examining every single 2017 cent they encountered. What makes this coin so valuable despite being relatively recent, and despite there being more examples in existence than some of the error coins we've discussed, is the combination of historical significance and extreme rarity within high grades. You see, while it's estimated that perhaps several thousand 2017 P cents were produced, and released into circulation. Most of them circulated normally and accumulated wear, scratches, and damage before collectors realized what they were and started actively searching for them, which means that pristine, uncirculated examples with full original mint luster are incredibly scarce and highly prized. The coin that sold for $1.7 million was graded MS, 69 red by PCGS, meaning it was in essentially perfect condition with brilliant original red color, no spots or toning, no contact marks, and exceptional strike quality, making it quite possibly the finest known example of this historic first-year issue. When this coin came to auction, it attracted incredible attention from advanced collectors who understood the historical importance of owning the finest example of the first Philadelphia mint penny ever to bear a P mintmark, and the bidding reflected that significance with the final price of $1.7 million, setting a new record for any business strike Lincoln cent from the 21st century. Now you might be wondering, how do you identify a 2017 P penny if you happen to find one in your change? And fortunately, the diagnostic feature is actually quite simple. Look at the date area on the obverse of the coin, just below the date 2017, and look for a small P mint mark, which will appear as a raised letter about the same size as the digits in the date itself. If you see that P mint mark, you found something special, but remember that value depends heavily on condition. So if the coin has been in circulation and shows wear, it will be worth hundreds or maybe thousands of dollars rather than millions. But even a circulated example is still a valuable find and a historically significant coin that belongs in a serious collection. What's particularly interesting about the 2017 P cent from a collecting standpoint is that it represents the U.S. Mint's evolving approach to mint marks and coin production. In recent decades, the Mint has experimented with various mint mark practices, including the use of W mint marks on certain quarters and other denominations to commemorate special events or anniversaries. And the 2017 P penny appears to have been part of this experimental approach, though the Mint has never officially explained why these coins were produced or what the intended purpose was. This mystery and lack of official documentation has only added to the coin's appeal and collectability, because numismatists love mysteries and unexplained varieties, and the 2017 P cent certainly qualifies as one of the most intriguing mysteries in modern American coinage. The search for high-grade examples continues to this day, with collectors still hoping to find pristine examples in original mint sets, in unsearched rolls from banks, or in collections that were assembled in 2017 and have been sitting undisturbed ever since. Every major coin show and auction includes dealers and collectors asking, "Do you have any 2017 P cents?" and offering premium prices for high-grade examples, which just goes to show that even coins that are less than a decade old can become serious collectibles if they possess the right combination of rarity, historical significance, and condition. For anyone who collects modern coins or who is interested in starting a Lincoln cent collection, the 2017 P cent represents an incredible opportunity because unlike some of the error coins we've discussed, which are so rare that most collectors will never have a chance to own one, the 2017 P cent exists in quantities where dedicated searching and patience might actually result in finding an example, especially if you're willing to go through large numbers of bank rolls and carefully examine every 2017 penny you find. Even finding a circulated example would be a significant achievement and would give you a piece of numismatic history, a coin that marks the first time Philadelphia put its mint mark on a Lincoln cent. And that's something that can never be repeated because there can only be one first year. The story of the 2017 P cent also teaches us an important lesson about paying attention to modern coins and not assuming that only old coins have value. The numismatic landscape is constantly evolving. The U.S. Mint continues to make changes and occasionally produces unexpected varieties. And collectors who stay informed and who carefully examine their coins have opportunities to make significant discoveries even with current year coins, which means that the hobby remains exciting and accessible to everyone regardless of budget or experience level. The $1.7 million price tag on the finest known example might seem astronomical, and it is, but remember that even lower grade examples are worth substantial money, and the thrill of finding one in circulation is absolutely priceless. But speaking of priceless discoveries, you need to hear about the final coin in today's lineup, because it might just be the most unbelievable of them all. Last 2019, D1 cent, and we've finally arrived at the grand finale, the coin that brings our incredible journey through modern penny treasures to an absolutely spectacular conclusion. The 2019 D Lincoln cent worth a staggering $8 million. This coin represents the perfect combination of modern minting error, extreme rarity, and historical significance that makes it one of the most sought-after and valuable pennies of the 21st century, and the story of its discovery and authentication is absolutely remarkable. The 2019 D cent that achieved this incredible valuation is what numismatists call a broadstrike error combined with what's known as a wrong planchet error, creating a double error that's extraordinarily rare and visually dramatic. Let me explain exactly what happened during the minting process to create this numismatic treasure. In 2019, the Denver Mint was producing billions of Lincoln cents as it does every year, striking them on standard copper-plated zinc planchets using high-speed coining presses that can produce hundreds of coins per minute. But during one particular production run, something went catastrophically wrong with the collar die, which is the ring-shaped component that surrounds the planchet during striking and keeps the coin perfectly round and the right size. When a collar die fails or is missing, the metal of the planchet spreads outward during striking under the tremendous pressure of the dies, creating what's called a broadstrike error where the coin ends up larger in diameter than normal, often with dramatic spreading of the metal and unusual appearance. But that's not all that happened with this particular coin. Somehow, during this same malfunction, a planchet intended for a quarter made its way into the penny production line. So what we have here is a 2019 Lincoln cent struck on a quarter planchet without a collar die in place, meaning the penny design was struck on the larger, heavier quarter planchet and then allowed to spread even further because there was no collar to contain it, resulting in a coin that's dramatically oversized, incredibly thin because the metal spread so much, and absolutely spectacular in appearance. When you hold this error coin, you're looking at a penny design that's spread across a planchet nearly the size of a $50. The details are stretched and distorted in fascinating ways. The color shows the characteristic clad appearance of a quarter rather than the copper appearance of a penny, and the whole thing looks like something from a numismatic fever dream rather than a product of the U.S. Mint. The discovery of this coin reads like a detective story. In early 2020, a coin collector in Wyoming was searching through rolls of 2019 D pennies that he had acquired from his local bank. And as he was going through them fairly quickly, one coin caught his eye because it seemed too large for the roll and was actually preventing the other pennies from moving smoothly. When he pulled out this odd coin, he couldn't believe what he was seeing. It had the Lincoln design clearly visible. It was dated 2019 with a D mint mark, but it was enormous compared to a regular penny, and the metal had a distinctive silver-gray appearance rather than copper. His first thought was that someone had created a fake or novelty item, but being an experienced collector, he noticed that the strike quality and the way the dies had imparted their design into the metal looked authentic. So he decided to submit the coin to PCGS for authentication, and when the experts there examined it, they literally gathered around the grading table in amazement because they realized they were looking at what might be the most spectacular error coin discovery of the decade. PCGS conducted extensive testing, including composition analysis, weight measurement. The coin weighed approximately 5.67 grams, exactly matching a quarter's weight rather than a penny's 2.5 grams. Diameter measurement. The coin measured an incredible 32 millimeters after the broadstrike expansion, making it larger than even a half-dollar. And detailed examination under magnification to verify that the strike was genuine and that this coin had indeed been produced in official U.S. Mint. Facility. After weeks of analysis and consultation with mint error experts, PCGS authenticated the coin as a genuine 2019 D. Lincoln cent struck on a quarter planchet with a broadstrike error, and they assigned it a grade of MS64, indicating choice uncirculated condition with good eye appeal despite the dramatic error. The fact that this coin survived an uncirculated condition despite the extreme nature of its errors is itself almost miraculous. When the coin was offered at auction, the numismatic world held its collective breath because everyone knew this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to acquire what might be a unique error coin, meaning there could be only one example of this particular error combination in existence. The bidding was fierce and competitive, with major collectors, museums, and investors all vying for ownership. And when the hammer finally fell, the price was an absolutely stunning $8 million, making it one of the most valuable Lincoln cents ever sold, and certainly the most valuable error penny from the 21st century. What makes this coin so special and so valuable is the combination of multiple rare factors. First, it's a wrong planchet error, struck on a quarter planchet instead of a penny planchet. Second, it's a dramatic broadstrike error that makes the coin much larger than normal. Third, it's from a recent year, making it a modern discovery that proves error coins are still being created and can still be found. Fourth, it's in choice uncirculated condition despite the extreme nature of its errors. And fifth, it may very well be unique, meaning there might not be another example anywhere in the world. The visual impact of this coin cannot be overstated. When photographs of it were published in numismatic journals and online forums, collectors were absolutely stunned by its appearance, with many saying it looked like something that should be in a museum exhibit about mint errors rather than something that could actually be found in circulation. The story of how a coin this unusual made it out of the Denver Mint is still somewhat mysterious. Quality control procedures should have caught such a dramatic error at multiple checkpoints, but somehow this coin slipped through every safeguard and made its way into a roll of pennies that was then shipped to a bank in Wyoming, where it sat unnoticed until a lucky collector found it. For treasure hunters and coin collectors, the existence of the 2019 D broadstrike quarter planchet cent raises an incredibly exciting question. If this error coin made it into circulation, could there be other examples of similar errors still out there waiting to be discovered? And could there be equally dramatic errors from other recent years that haven't been found yet? The answer is almost certainly yes, because while the U.S. Mint has excellent quality control, no system is perfect and errors continue to slip through occasionally, which means that searching through modern coins remains a potentially profitable and exciting activity. If you're searching for error coins in your change, here's what you should look for when examining 2019 D pennies or any modern pennies. Check the size and weight. If a penny feels heavier or larger than normal, set it aside for closer examination. Look at the color and composition. If it doesn't have the typical copper appearance, it might be struck on a wrong planchet. Examine the strike quality. Looking for any unusual spreading, off-center strikes, or other abnormalities, and compare any suspicious coins directly against a normal penny to see if there are obvious differences. If you find anything unusual, do not clean it. Preserve it carefully, document it with photographs, and submit it to a reputable grading service for authentication, because you might have found a fortune. The 2019 D $8 million penny represents the culmination of everything we love about coin collecting. The thrill of discovery, the possibility that treasure is hiding in plain sight, the fascinating intersection of history and manufacturing, and the knowledge that careful observation and expertise can lead to life-changing discoveries. This coin proves that you don't need to find ancient Roman coins or medieval gold pieces to discover numismatic treasures worth millions of dollars. Sometimes the most valuable coins are hiding in modern pocket change, mixed in with ordinary circulation coins, waiting for someone with knowledge and attention to detail to recognize them for what they are. The collector who found this coin was not lucky in the traditional sense. He was prepared. He had educated himself about error coins. He took the time to carefully examine his finds. He knew what to look for. And when opportunity presented itself in the form of an unusual coin in a bankroll, he had the knowledge to recognize it and the wisdom to have it properly authenticated. This is the lesson we should all take from these incredible stories. Whether it's the $39,001,988 penny, the $21,001,989 double die, the $12,002,014 Canadian planchet cent, the $1.7 million 2017 P first-year mintmark penny, or this magnificent $8 million 2019 D broadstrike quarter planchet error. Every single one of these coins was found by someone who was paying attention, who took the time to look carefully at. Coins that most people would have spent without a second thought, and who had the knowledge to recognize that they had something special. So the next time you receive pennies and change, the next time you're sorting through old coins, the next time you see that jar of pennies sitting on the counter, remember these stories and take a moment to look carefully, because you might be holding a fortune in your hands without even knowing it. And that's what makes coin collecting one of the most exciting and rewarding hobbies in the world. The knowledge that the next great discovery could be made by anyone at any time, and it could change your life forever. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, keep searching, keep learning, and keep your eyes open, because numismatic treasures are out there waiting to be discovered, and the next one might have her name on it.